Welcome to the Empowered Spirit Show. This is your host, Terry Ann Hyman. I'll explore the connection to the human spirit in a way that helps to navigate your life, including crisis. I am passionate about helping you to open up to your intuition and the metaphysical world of spirit to find your confidence in your own inner guidance. Take a pause, be inspired, learn ways to show up focused, centered, and more dynamic in your everyday life.
Welcome back to the Empowered Spirit Show. Thank you so much for tuning in and joining me today. Before we begin, I have an exciting announcement. I am now welcoming clients into my brand new office space in Vista, California. This peaceful, private setting gives us a beautiful space to connect in person for spiritual mentoring, soul sessions, Reiki, and energy healing. Online sessions are also available wherever you are. To learn more, book a session, or schedule a complimentary discovery call, visit spiritualmentoring.com. Now here we are right in the middle of an eclipse season with the second eclipse, a lunar full moon eclipse, coming in on the 27th. Cosmic forces have a way of stirring things up, bringing movement to places that may have felt settled and illuminating what has been waiting beneath the surface. During a time like this, it is especially important to notice your energy and your emotions. What is rising within you? What feels heightened, uncomfortable, or ready to change? Rather than judging those feelings or pushing them away, we can allow them to show us what needs our attention. So in recent episodes, I've been talking a lot about the shapes we take on to cover up how we are truly feeling deep down. I've also wrote recently about two different shapes we can live within: the familiar shape, created by past habits and conditioning, like the South Node, or a new shape we consciously create as we rewire the brain and establish healthier patterns and habits to live our purpose. That's the energy of the North Nodes. These lunar nodes and eclipse cycles can help us recognize these patterns. They can reveal where we continue to respond from the past, where an old identity may still be directing our choices, and where we are being invited to move differently. Awareness is the first step, but once we recognize a pattern, we also need practical ways to begin changing it. So, over the next few episodes, I want to bring on some guests to help us explore tools and modalities that we can use personally to support that process, to regulate our energy, shift our emotional state, and help the body and brain build new patterns. So today, we're going to begin with one of the most ancient and accessible tools available to us: sound. My guest is Jonathan Goldman, a founding pioneer and international authority in the field of sound healing with more than 50 years of experience. I've had Jonathan's music in my library for the past 20 years plus. Every time I go to attune my students to Reiki, I use his Reiki attunement music in the background, or even personally to calm down, raising my vibration, bringing in abundance. So I am more than thrilled to have him here with us today. But before we begin, let's take a moment to pause, center, and set an intention to help us move through this eclipse season. So wherever you are, if you can, close your eyes. Taking a nice deep inhale, expanding the breath up the body. And as you exhale, call all your energy into you. And again, inhale, expanding the breath up the body. And exhale, bringing that breath all the way down, slowing down, centering. Inhale, expanding the breath up the body. And now as you exhale, drop right into the heart, right into that deepest part of your heart. Feel that connection with your spirit, the greater spirit, source, creator, God. Know that you are loved, guided, and protected. Feeling all this energy coming in as we set this space, calling in the Reiki masters, those that have come before us. Let's call in the angels to open our hearts with joy and love, calling in the crystal beings for amusement, magnification, and now calling in the higher self to help you receive these messages, to feel that alignment. As we go to set an intention, we honor where we are right here in this great wheel of life. We find ourselves in the late summer energy. As I teach in the direction of the south, We call in the divine feminine. We recognize all the patience and fun and joy we've taken in this season to grow those intentions. And we ask for this intention to help us move through this season with change, with growth, with joy and love. To the south and the west and the north and the east, above us, below us, right into the very center, setting that intention for you. Taking another deep inhale, sending a little Reiki out, and exhale, feeling your heart opening, feeling that third eye illuminating. Taking one more deep breath, and as you're ready, grounding your energy, but getting to blink the eyes back open, coming back. So my guest today, Jonathan Goldman, facilitates healing sound seminars throughout Europe and the United States. He is president of Spirit Music Incorporated and director of the Sound Healers Association. A Grammy nominee, he has created more than 30 best-selling, award-winning recordings and books. He lives in Boulder, Colorado, and you can learn more about his work at healingsounds.com. Today, Jonathan joins us to discuss the revised and expanded edition of the Divine Name, now titled Ascension Harmonics, Invoke the Divine Name for Vibrational Activation and Healing, with a foreword by Greg Braden. In our conversation, we're going to explore the relationship between sound, frequency, intention, and healing, and how our own voice can become a transformational instrument, and how sacred sound may help us create greater harmony within ourselves and in the world around us. So let us welcome Jonathan to the show. Welcome, Jonathan.
Terry, what a blessing it is to be here. Hello.
Hello. I am super excited, as I was saying before I even hit record. I've had your music for so long. I honor your work. You've persevered. You're doing so much more research. Even the book we're here to talk about today, Ascension Harmonics, is kind of updating information that you have been working with for a long time. So I am so grateful that you are here. Thank you so much.
What a blessing it is to be with you. So thank you again for having me.
Yes. So before we begin to jump into your newest book, just let me ask, how did you come about? What is your background? What led you into the sound healing, the sound vibrations?
Come from a family of doctors. Father, grandfather, brother were all doctors. Went to Boston University Film School. Was playing in rock and roll bands since the Beatles came out. Had an experience after I graduated school, and actually I did some graduate work in journalism there, and then all of a sudden, probably around 1979, I'm playing in a seaside bar in Marshfield, Massachusetts, and I come in from a break. I strap on one of them there, guitars back there, start playing, look out at the audience, and as I'm looking out at the audience, I become aware that the ambiance of the club was one of negativity and violence. Now, no doubt the alcohol, the other intoxicants that people are imbibing in were helping induce this ambiance, but I also knew that the music that I was creating at the time was also helping induce this ambiance, and I had the thought, gee, I wonder if the music can be used to make people feel good. I'd never had that thought before, Terry. It had always been, look at me, aren't I a really cool guitar player? Look at me. And here it was like, wow. And that thought shifted about 10 degrees in the next week and became, I wonder if sound can be used to heal. And a week after that, I'm handed a sheet of paper on how to use sound and color for healing, taught by a woman named Sarah Benson, who went on to become a dear mentor, friend, godmother of our son, and all this other stuff. So doors just began to open. And as I like to say, during that experience, I was in the middle of a circle, and people were chanting my name, singing my name, and I'm holding a quartz crystal. I went out of my body. I went to this amethyst pyramid in the woods. When I came back to my body and opened my eyes, I thought, I got to find out more about these quartz crystals, and I got to find out more about this sound. And I did. And we could spend the rest of our time together with just my, ventures into that. But let's continue going into other things. What happened was, shortly after that, I basically became involved in creating a master's degree program at Lesley University, researching the uses of sound and music for healing. I started the Sound Healers Association, took my record company, which had been a new wave record company, a kind of punk new wave, and it became a new age record company with the first. And the only thing I didn't have to change was the name of the company, which was Spirit Music, because it had been named after this dog that materialized to me and was a guidance for me. So his name was Spirit. Anyway, that's the short of it.
That's a great story. Yeah. And so many things I can relate to. My daughter went to UMass, but I remember the first time I ever heard a sound bowl, a quartz sound bowl. That changed everything for me. I had heard the Tibetan ones. I always loved music, but something about the quartz and how it activates energy. And I, from there, just started playing and practicing and looking and exploring myself. So I do know, and I do agree with you that it is very healing and very calming. I have to tell you really quick, and we'll move on, but I have a grandson. That's why I moved out to California. He is now 10 months, and I've brought the bowls over to him. And I've started to teach him. And to see this little guy, he's getting better. I had to switch from the quartz to the Tibetan bowls, but I also got him a panda drum. And he is humming along with the panda drum. It is so cute. Yeah.
Have you seen one of these?
I've seen them. I don't have one of those, but he is so cute and he gets so tickled. And you could see just that energy lift up with him. So yes, I am totally in agreement. And I love this mission that you're on and how you have become that pioneer in sound healing.
Kids love sound. They love bowls, bells. They love the hum, which we were talking about before. It's something that is inherent within them. We probably suppress it and crush it. And how many people have what you might call blocked throat chakras because of various things? It's a whole nother subject. Our purpose is to free and open so everybody can resonate to higher levels of light and love through sound. What a concept.
Totally agree. Yes, totally agree, which is the basis of sound, right?
Yes, indeed.
So you're taking that idea of basis of sound, lifting vibration, and I'm sure the tones we put together. I remember learning the perfect fifth when I started playing the bowls and how that just like, whoa, that just like totally, which then helped me to understand music because I'm not a musician, but I definitely can feel the vibrations from the sound bowls and the combinations that we do. Yeah.
Well, Terry, when you work with the interval of the perfect fifth, which I'm doing this very soft because otherwise it's, but it's lovely, and it has a whole lot more power than just the single tone. The whole number interval, which are harmonically related, which then can be pulled into the Ascension Harmonics phenomena. Yikes.
Yikes, right? That's what we're talking about. Yes. So now let's talk about this formula because this is going to lead us into this book. Frequency plus intent equals healing. Tell us about that.
That came from my completing my master's dissertation at Lesley University. And I was sitting in front of a computer that was so old it used a DOS operating system. Dark screen, amber letters. I have a pile of papers about Yo-Hi that have different systems of using sound and music from various people who had contributed to me, because at the time, this is this is in the mid 80s at the best. These doctors, musicians, scientists, healers had contributed to me because I was on a quest, and I was going to create Goldman's Encyclopedia of Sound Healing, where you'd go, oh, you got a problem? Look it up. Here's the frequency, tone, or whatnot. But what happened was, as I began to correlate this information, none of it aligned. You had Spiritual Master A, who was working with a particular sequence of chakras and harmonics and, if you like, mantras to resonate the energy fields. And you had a different Spiritual Master B using a completely different set. You had Dr. X, who was using a certain set of frequencies for an organ, and Dr. Y using a completely different set of frequencies for the same organ. Now, they were all claiming success. There was no money in it at the time. They were just telling me their personal stuff. And it was like, how can this be? How can this be? I was sitting there rocking back and forth in the chair, my head and my hands in a state of intellectual angst. And an inner voice said, it is not only the frequency of the sound that creates its effect, it is also the intention of the person making and receiving the sound. And I wrote down the words frequency plus intent equals healing. That was over 40 years ago, and it's more relevant now than it was back then. But back then, I was really having a hard time because I would go to these different doctors and go, hey, have you ever thought of the importance of intentionality? And they would look at me like I was a man from another planet, which I well may be, but they weren't supposed to know. But then you had Wayne Dyer doing his Power of Intent. You had Masaru Emoto doing the water pictures. You had Bruce Lipton's Biology of Belief. You had Joe Dispenza's You Are the Placebo. You had Linda McTaggart doing her intention experiments, all these things. So now when I talk about intention, people go, oh, yeah, it's like commonplace. I love it. So
Yeah.
that's where it began.
But I agree that intention is so important. That helps lift that vibration too, because we want it all to start in that harmonics as you describe. Yeah.
Right. And we can take the same sound and basically, depending upon the consciousness that you encode upon the sound, it can have two different effects. And I always like to tell people, anytime, anywhere, that you can do sound healing simply through the conversational voice if you just project the energy of kindness and compassion. It's that easy, it's that simple, and it's that powerful.
I agree. Something I've had to work on is the tone of my voice, right? Single mom, raising kids, New York, right? That tone could get up there. But when you drop into your heart and you drop your tone, such a different feeling.
Exactly.
Yeah. For sure. So now your new book is entitled Ascension Harmonics, Invoke the Divine Name for Vibrational Activation and Healing. Yud Hey Vav Hey.
Yes, I have to look because it's a pretty cool cover. I got to admit that. So there we go.
It is a very cool cover, and it has so much information in there. I'm still not finished reading it, but I certainly have highlighted so much information. And even in the book, you give us a way to go to your site and download some of the sounds and tones and go through that with us, which is awesome.
Yes. Well, the book, I realized actually today, I was kind of looking it over again because it's so full of so much material. It's about 3 different books. Part of it is about my personal journey into understanding this aspect of what could be called the Tetragrammaton, what could be called the Divine Name, and where that came from. And then my journey into sacred sound and what composes sacred sound, the power of intention, the power of frequency, all these other things. There's a whole section on sacred sound. And then we get back into how to create the divine name. Then it ends up with some of the new scientific research we have validating the power of it. So it's a whole lot of stuff. I love it, because it's like, it's really chock full of information and energy and love.
It is chock full of information. Like I said, I've been like highlighting and looking through and skimming and coming back. So I definitely agree with you on that. And I think it is kind of fascinating, the whole idea of that divine name and where it comes from and how we can use it no matter what religion. Now, I work with spiritual energy, all faiths, all religion. I mentioned my background is Judaism, grew up in the South in the 60s. So it is very interesting for me. And then when you go into the spiritual aspects, because I studied interfaith, all religions in New York. And there was always that spiritual aspects above it that unite us all together. So this really is open to everyone, right?
Well, yes, if you like this sound, at least from my perspective, from my rediscovery of it, this sound it's composed of vowel sounds, which because of this, it is universal. It is trans-denominational. The vowel sounds are found in every different tradition. They are, of course, in the book I have a couple of chapters on vowel sounds and their sacredness in the different traditions and the relationship to what we call harmonics, etc. And my actual discovery of this sound, Terry, happened when I was awakened one morning in the 1990s. I was literally on the couch of my dear friend Sarah Benson and her husband Don Beeman, and I awoke from a dream. Now, for about 10 years before this, I'd been teaching a sequence of vowel sounds that would be used to resonate the chakras, going from the root chakra up to the crown chakra. Very, very powerful. Knew this like the back of my hand, but in the dream I was told to make the sounds going from the crown down to the root and then back up again. And I literally had to write this out because I didn't know what they were backwards. It's kind of like doing the alphabet backwards or whatnot. And two things happened. The first time when I first did it, I felt the energy go from the top of my head down to the base of my spine, then back up, which I expected. But also I heard this very elongated sound that was a vowel sequence that sounded a lot like what is called the tetragrammaton. It sounded like a very elongated, and that was like, whoa, what is this? Is this something else besides what I thought it was?
Fascinating. I actually tried to do it myself this morning when I was reading that part of the book. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, and once again, blessed be, thanks now to the fabulous internet. I have about an hour's worth of downloadable instructional material on how you can learn to make this sound. And it's really cool because once you get it, it's a long process. I could make it real easy, but if I made it really easy, then it wouldn't be as sacred, would it? Because it'd be like, oh, I can do it, But I had to go through a little bit of work to learn how to do this. And everybody can learn how to do it. It's just, a specific sequence. It becomes for myself, it's probably, because I never say it is for sure, but it's probably the most powerful sacred sound I've ever encountered. And I've done everything, my dear, than you can imagine.
I can imagine. I mean, just looking at your room and all your instruments. Yes. And I did a lot of chanting. I did a lot of toning. I actually did more, from my yoga class kind of sadhana chanting and all than I really realized until I went back to the temple and then started singing more in Hebrew and started to really kind of say, well, this is chanting too. This is healing too. Right. And we started bringing in, I know at the holidays at the temple I was at in Birmingham, they brought in this cantor. And they got members of the congregation and they had this low humming tone throughout the service. It was absolutely beautiful. It was such another level. Now, One of the things you talk about in the book that I really related to was sitting in temple and finding this.
I mean, seeing the tetragrammaton. Right. Well, so here we go. My family, my father was a well-known doctor. His brothers had a kosher hotel that was considered the Catskills of Jersey, and everybody from, you name it, Rodney Dangerfield to Jackie Mason, all these comedians to Odetta would would perform there. And on the high holy days, the nightclub got turned into a temple. And I remember sitting there looking at that and somebody pointing to these letters going, this is the secret name of God. It's so powerful you can't even pronounce it, which was really interesting. And then when I found, somebody said, oh, it's pronounced Yahweh. And I tried that and lightning didn't strike me and not much happened. I thought, well, not much happened. But then 30 plus years later, when I had that experience, and what was really interesting is after I had that experience, I taught it to a couple of people. One were a couple of nurse friends of mine who are high Egyptian priestesses, and I was out in Portland teaching with them, and I thought, okay, I'm going to show you this, and we literally all passed out. It was that powerful. And I said, okay, I'm not going to share this with too many other people because this is just too profound. But then some years later, my wife Andy and I were attending a workshop that our friend Greg Braden was teaching, and in the middle of the workshop, I said to Andy, I said, this is Kabbalah, which is basically Jewish mysticism. So at the end of the workshop, Greg and I went out to a dinner with Andy. And I said, Greg, because the workshop was on the Tetragrammaton. I said, I may have discovered a way of doing this that you're going to really, really like. And I'm going to do a recording of this for you, and you can use it in your workshop. So he was overjoyed. I said, but you got to make sure nobody records it because it's really sacred and special, and I want to make sure, if you have control over the way it's used, but like everything else, somebody must have recorded it and ended up on the internet. And I thought, well, if it's going to be on the internet, then I'm going to do a gung-ho, grade A, high definition recording of this. And that began a recording called The Sounds of the God Code, which then moved into the first edition of the Divine Name.
How awesome is that? Yeah, I still know that, which is something I had to remember because being in New York and learning all the religions and coming back to Birmingham as a spiritual counselor, right, in all faiths, all religions, but the idea of not even saying the name God, it was always out of noy, or if you spelled it out, it was G-D.
Yeah.
So this ties into that whole idea of it being sacred and not being directly said.
Well, what was so interesting for me was I didn't buy my discovery at all, because the Hebrew letters were consonants, right? And I said, well, these are vowels, the twain shall not meet. And then I started reading a book called Teach Yourself Biblical Hebrew. And I was fine the first, second, third chapter, the fourth one, which was the use of certain of the Hebrew letters as consonants. And I was like, what? And it turned out that the Yud, He, the He, and the Vav, which were the letters were actually the, if you like, the vowel sounds that were used. And most people who know of modern Hebrew are clueless about this, because this is biblical Hebrew. But it's validated, it's a fact, and it's real. And some people have written books on the fact that this is such a profound and important thing. Nobody pays any attention to it.
Yeah, that is so true. Now, again, I was raised in the 60s, bat mitzvahed in the early 70s, took Hebrew in high school, even conversational. We were always taught vowels. And I've never heard this before either. Yeah.
I spoke to my cousin's wife, who was a Hebrew school teacher, and she thought I was nuts. Yeah, no, there are no vowel sounds. There are these vowel points. But the vowel points happened around 600 AD. And there's a whole story about them. But Hebrew is a way much more ancient language. And it made sense to me that these, if like vowel sounds. But the reason I changed the title of the book from the Divine Name to Ascension Harmonics was simply I didn't want people to get too locked in to any specific tradition being the purveyor of this sacred sound, because I have to tell you, I've taught this to yogis, I've taught this to Native Americans, I've taught this to everyone in different traditions, and they can relate because all the traditions work with the sacred sound. The for example, is considered sacred in so many of the different traditions and is sort of one of the great divine sounds of the heart energy and the divine goddess energy. So sound is universal. If you like, when you get into the consonants, that's when you get the specific languages, but the vowel sounds are universal. And is going to be an regardless of what country. You feel it. I think that there used to be a tonal language before we had a spoken language. And the tonal language had the vowel sounds, the harmonics, and you would project your consciousness on there. It's different than telepathy, and it may be as powerful.
It probably is, and I so agree with you because I'm watching my grandson, and he is toning. He is saying some of these sounds. I remember like the trying to get him to say mama, right? And so that comes forward, right? But it's this beautiful vibration, and he gets all cute and just happy. I think that's what we're talking about in the really simple form. Yeah,
sure.
Yeah. So, what are some of the benefits of sounding the divine name that you're bringing forward?
Well, you have physiological benefits, you have emotional benefits, you have spiritual benefits, and then you have universal benefits. The physiological benefits are some of the different benefits that are found in self-created sounds: increased oxygen in your cells, increased lymphatic circulation, lowered blood pressure and heart rate, increased levels of melatonin, release of endorphins, you get the release of nitric oxide, which is a vasodilator, get the release of oxytocin, increased heart rate variability, and vagal toning. So all of this stuff happens when you make these sounds. On another level, you're energetically working with the sound coming from the high levels down to the lower aspects of the body and then back up again. And as you know, with the chakras, if you like, are sort of a go-between the physical body and the etheric body. You put them into balance, and oftentimes you can heal the physical body. And at the same time, you can heal the emotional body, and at the same time, you can heal the spiritual etheric bodies. So there's that and that. And then finally, it's a wonderful, fabulous tool to use. I do it every day as just a tool to protect myself, shield myself, and connect to higher levels of consciousness.
Yeah, I agree. I agree in all those benefits. And it's so great to hear you say that. And you have that research in your book for it, and that we can use this. Like I said, I've been adding in that humming 3 minutes after my normal meditations in the morning. I feel like there's a level of stress in the world right now. And I feel like I'm waking up with it, and it's not all mine. Okay, I admit I have some, but it's not all mine. And so I'm like, okay. And I was thinking about this morning, all right, this is what my intention is to release that. And so I did put that intention in there with that humming. Release this excess stress, because I feel like I'm losing some of the joy around me right now. I don't know what it is, and it's got a grip on me. So I am doing my own little experiment on my own self, right? But this is one of the benefits I think we can, especially in a world right now where we are going through this huge cosmic shift. And so there is this, like, I would say it's like almost like a tension until we can, yeah.
Well, Terry, interesting. I was just this morning. As you know, we have a book, The Humming Effect, which I'm a huge advocate of, and huge advocate of teaching it to people, because it's something anybody can pick up immediately and apply the physiological benefits. But as you saw, when I was doing the Divine Name, my back had to be straightened. I had to be in a fairly coherent place. I can't actually do the Divine Name when I'm lying in bed, but I can hum.
Ah, okay.
So I can lie there and go, and send a sound to my head or my heart or my stomach, because the hum is the one sound that is almost the breath made audible. There are times where I have done workshops on going from humming to the Divine Name, and I call it going from the alpha to the omega of sound.
That's so fascinating to hear. Yeah, I told you I'm a big fan of that, just having read it myself. Yeah, and adding that in. And I think that this sound, this toning, this, as you call it, sound harmonics, right? I've studied light, and I call it light harmonics. My teacher taught it as light harmonics, color harmonics, actually. That's what she taught it as. It all fits in together. They're all information coming in, feeding us on such a different level. And frequency, to me, when I channel the Marians, it's like the idea of frequency. We're hearing frequency. Everybody's doing sound baths now. Maybe not everybody, but a lot more people are.
Almost everybody.
I know, right? It seems like it. I know in Birmingham, I bring I'm a gypsy, bring my bowls with me to all my yoga classes. But here, when I came here, like in California here, like all that was part of, like, it's not even yoga in the class. It's just the sound or the humming and the toning. So important, so beneficial. Yeah. So I think that's an awesome way. And then as you get into, and your book does go into all the different ways of toning. And like you said, at the back of the book, you do give us, I've downloaded them, those examples so that we can. I mean, you don't really need any prior musical experience. You definitely don't need any kind of religious experience, right, to experience this.
No, not at all. And what's great, talking about experience, it's all about the experience. You can feed your left brain, the logical brain, with all sorts of different aspects of being, information, X, Y, or Z, and it makes sense. But with sound, until you've experienced the effects of the sound, it's not real. And then once you've experienced it, it's real, and it can't be taken away from you. And so there are two basic ways that sound affects us. One is called psychoacoustics, where sound goes into our ear, into our brain, affecting our heart rate, our respiration, our brain waves. The other is called vibroacoustics, and that's where sound goes into our cells, affecting us, going down to our, literally, down to our DNA and our molecules. And the divine name is one of the most powerful sounds for doing both.
I love that. I really do. I was a big fan of Dr. Norm Shealy, and he used to talk about autonomic training. And that's where we would talk to the cells. And I've always carried that concept with me. And that's what you're saying. It gets into that cellular structure, which is medicine of the future, right? But we can get in there, and that can help us to all the many benefits that you just described. So I'm right there with you. And I think it is fascinating, and it is what's going to lead us into the ascension, into this new earth people are talking about, and all the astrologers are talking about it. But we are shifting, and this is one of the ways. The color, the light, the sound, all of these can help us.
What's interesting, Terry, there's a fellow by the name of Dr. Glenn Ryan, who in the end of the book, I present his working with the divine name on DNA and water. And he found that this sound had really powerful, that it literally created new tones that he had never seen before in all of his research and all of his work. And it did stuff. So there's something, and in the book also I have this very cool, I love it, these photographs, they're if you like biofield or aura photographs of me intoning the divine name. And it's just, you should see them in color, but in black and white still. I begin doing it, there's a picture of me, and then all of a sudden it's begin to making the sound, it's like, and you see all of a sudden this white cloud, and it becomes more and more, and then the whole picture basically becomes encompassed by the white cloud, which is obviously some sort of luminosity through the sound. So I'm not making it up.
I know you're not making it up, and I love that chapter in there that you showed those pictures, because it can be that for us. And again, I think I'll say it one more time. Medicine of the future is what we need, because we know so much of the other isn't working. But there's so many effects, and we can start working, especially on the higher ascension, working on the pineal gland, opening it up. That really does so much for us. Yeah.
Well, I had an extraordinary experience this morning. I'm just going to say, because as we were talking in real time, it is 8/8, the Lion's Gate, which is a phenomena I've been celebrating for the last 40 years, believe it or not. This is nothing new to me. I was initiated into from the Egyptian traditions, but for some reason I had this incredible, I was looking at the sun and I was intoning the divine name, and there was this tremendous rush of energy that was happening right in this area. And I realized that the sun, if you like, was a focal point for the energy of the Sirius coming through the sun, coming into me. And I was going, whoa, it happened. It just took about a minute, but it was a phenomenal experience. It was so cool.
I can feel that from you. Yeah, that is very cool, though. And yes, all of this is what we're talking about. Opening up through those portals, opening up. And Sirius right now, coming back into the morning sky, and just all the cosmic forces. I so agree with you. And what a beautiful experience to have. So, can you demonstrate for us? I've been dying to ask you that.
You know, I will try to do this, but I feel a lovely resonance with you. But I will share that at best, because of Zoom and whatnot, a lot of the frequencies won't be encoding. I want to make sure that I have music, original sound from musicians.
Right, I do too. Yep, so it doesn't compress it.
And what I'll do, just to make this, is I'm going to do, and this is found in the book too, an invocation to Shamael, the angel of sacred sound, who in many traditions would be perceived as being Metatron. Okay, more on this later. The book, there's information on the book, but here I'll do this. I invoke the spirit of Shamael, angel of sacred sound. May the sound of light surround me. May the light of sound guide me. May sacred sound come through me for the harmony of all.
Thank you. The silence after is just as important. Thank you. Thank
Yes,
you.
it is
Hands,
just as
yeah.
important.
Yeah, my hands are buzzing. My heart is opening. Yeah, beautiful. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, quite nice. I look forward to listening to the other downloads that you offer us as
And
well
mind you,
that
I've been
are.
doing this for a few years, so you could just go, and, once again, just as powerful. I should have done that, which would have been perhaps a little less spectacular, but
I like
I,
the invocation. Yeah, no, I love it. Yeah, both. So we got to hear it just now. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Yeah, and I just personally will say I'm very excited to now add this in to my morning meditation because I have not been chanting. I have not been doing this and I miss it. So thank you. Super. Personally grateful. Yes, definitely.
Right. Give thanks. Thank
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'm glad I asked. Yeah. So you are the founder of World Sound Healing Day, having its 25th event next year, right? Tell us about that and the science of sound for planetary healing. Tell us about that.
Bottom line, February 14th, Valentine's Day, every year, next year, 2027 will be the 25th year. People throughout the planet, oftentimes tens of thousands of people, will sound forth with the ah sound, encoded with the energy of love and compassion to, if you like, interface with what I call the Gaia matrix, the field of our planet. And people love science, so I'll tell you a little bit about the science of this. Bottom line is that a fellow by the name of Roger Nelson from Princeton University created the Global Consciousness Project. What he found out was that he could take a computer that was running a program called a random number generator, which is simply zeros and ones. Just as you flip a coin, you get 100 times, you get 50 heads, 50 tails. With a random number generator, 100 times, 50 zeros, 50 ones. When people sat around the computer, projected compassion and kindness, the numbers became askew. You got less zeros or more ones or more zeros and less ones. And he was able to then track that. And then he found that events of high compassion somehow were able to affect these random number generators. Now, with working with scientists throughout the planet, Heart Math Institute has taken over a lot of this stuff, and that's Dr. Roland McCready has done a lot of the work, and it's just great. So, among other things, they do track the global consciousness tracks World Sound Healing Day, and they found that it sort of creates sort of like a mountainous type thing when people do this, which is an indication that we can literally interface with the consciousness of the planet. Some of this is based also upon what is called the Maharishi effect, where the Maharishi Mahesh yogis, people found that when they had events of high compassionate meditation, that events of violence and destruction really went down a whole lot. So there is a feedback loop occurring in our consciousness. Terry, I'm going to suggest everything is consciousness.
I
The
agree.
highest, the highest level that we can perceive of this consciousness is love. And the name that we call this consciousness of love, we call it God. And
Yeah.
it's just an energy form, it's a source, it's all that is. And I love it because it may be that simple. And we can interface with all that, working with our own luminosity, with our own, if you like, sound, turning into light, turning into love, such as working with the Ascension Harmonics of the Divine Name.
Definitely. Yeah. And I will say that I have one of the tracking devices that the Heart Math put out. You put
Yeah.
it to your ear and you track it. And I have been doing little experiments on myself with being in the heart, using the breath. And now I'm going to be adding the humming in there too, and now I'll be adding this in too, but just to see, because it measures that. And then what you do is once you start to know the measurement, when you're in your everyday world, you can continually come back to that and
I'd
you
like to
feel that resonance.
Yeah, I'd like to suggest that if you add sound to the heart brain coherence, which is done as a technique of deep breathing and feeling through the heart and gratitude, I think it amplifies our electromagnetic field even more. It's supposed to be amplified 500 to 5,000 times greater. I think that adding sound makes it greater. I think this is the reason why the major prayers on our planet are vocalized, or whispered, chanted, or spoken and sung. That's because sound amplifies the power of the prayer and our consciousness.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, just like adding music into the room I was telling you about before, just like what a difference it does. And we know this. It hits in the limbic part of the brain. We hear an old song. We go back to that. We feel the heart, right? And this takes it even further. It really does. It allows us to be able to tone and use this for our own healing. And as you talk about in your book, and part of your mission, part of your intention is the healing of the planet. Yeah.
And you know, Terry, I think we're still in our infancy in terms of understanding what sound does, including the brain work. I think that, oh, this does this does that. I think we're actually clueless. I think we're going to have instrumentation that's all of a sudden going to show us that there are fields that we create with sound that our own field interfaces with. And literally, there's a co-creative effort that most of us are clueless about right now, but we'll find out sooner or later, and then we'll be even more amazed.
Yes, as in galactic, as in communicating. Yeah, as in that frequency of higher health and higher living. I so agree with you. I'm right there. Yeah, and I love all the work that you've done for this, and how exciting for the 25th annual next year. Awesome.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, and
That's
also to
really,
your wife too, because I know she was a big part of the humming effect. I know y'all do a lot together, and
yeah,
even your soundtracks. Like when I go to do Reiki attunements, who do I choose? I put your attunements on right behind us as we're doing it, and then I also, as you see here, I use color and crystals in all of the work I do. Right. And I didn't talk about why I do it. I just do it. And people walk into my healing studio and go, wow, wow. And then when I was moving, because I was tearing everything down, one day somebody came in and none of the lights, none of the crystals were there. And they're like, wow, what a difference. Same room. Yeah,
yes.
definitely.
Well, we both have an affinity to these critters, and
Yeah.
I've been working with them for 40 years too, because once again, not only did I have to find out about sound, but I had to find out about crystals, and there is a major interface between crystals and sound, and of course, crystals and light. And I know that you know about crystalloluminescence and all sorts of other stuff, but there's a major interface between all this stuff. And one thing just amplifies and enhances the other. And that's what we want. We want stuff to work even better so we can generate more light and love through sound, or light and love through whatever on the planet, because that's what it's about. We need, first and foremost, we need to be nice to each other. And then after that, it's all gravy or sugar or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. Yeah. Amen. Aho. I agree. However you want to say that, but yes, 100%. Yeah, definitely. Well, what a delightful conversation. I'm sure we could continue on and on and on, but tell us, where can we find you? What's going on? Are you teaching beyond your books? I mean, your books are awesome. You have so many and so much music. Where can we find you?
My website is healingsounds.com. One word. We've had it for 30 years easily. Now people are doing all sorts of things to try to tap into that. So I won't even say the permutations, but they're dots and dashes, but it's just one word, healingsounds.com. And it sounds with an S at the end. And there's all sorts of great information there. There's free downloads. You can order stuff there. There's workshops. There's all sorts of things that's been on there. My purpose, Terry, has been to bring awareness of the uses of sound and music for healing onto this planet. It's happening. I'm grateful. And thank you so much for including me in this wonderful conversation. What a blessing.
Well, thank you. Thank you, too. And I will put those links in there. Your work is amazing. It's outstanding. And I know that we have said this, but as we go to close the show, I do like to come back around and just ask, how do you feel that working with the Ascension Harmonics can help to empower the spirit right now?
It's a hotline to the divine. It's that simple and that powerful. If we can use our own self-created sounds. I didn't get into it, but I think one of the reasons why this information was removed from our consciousness was simply that, if you like, the priestcraft got in the way of stop. That they blocked it because it allowed people to have their own personal experience with Source. And they wanted to be the sort of telephone there. Use me instead. I don't think we need it. I think we now are empowered enough to really achieve that aspect of consciousness. And we give thanks. Does that make sense?
Hotline to the divine, 100%. Yes, it does. Yes, thank you. Yeah, beautiful message, beautiful work. I, for one, am very grateful to have this conversation with you today, to your spirit. Yes, it is a hotline to the divine, and it is that simple and that powerful. A few minutes of toning, humming every day can make a shift in your consciousness, which in turn helps humanity as well. Be sure to check out all of Jonathan's work, and when you get his book, you'll also get access to several different meditations to how to tone in this beautiful divine name. I've been toning and chanting every night before bed, and I am noticing some powerful differences. Thanks again for listening today. Be careful out there in this eclipse season. I am your host, Terry Ann Hyman, to your spirit. Namaste.